You're listening to SM Media, the number one place for exclusive Scottish football content.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the SM Media Scottish Football Show. I'm Scotland Pike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. And welcome to our Easter Sunday special. We're recording this on Easter Sunday night. And if you're like me and don't really care about Easter, you just like the idea of talking about football all weekend, then you picked the perfect place to join. There's no drama like Scottish football, especially a weekend that involves a Celtic Rangers game. And we've picked three new guests to join us. Three guests making their first appearances on the show, and they've picked a very dramatic weekend to make their debut in SM Media. First of all, it's a pleasure to welcome on to the show Jack Cranmer. Jack, it's a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Hi. Delighted to be on. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. And it's also a pleasure to welcome on to the show for his first appearance, Oran Stander. Oran, thank you very much for coming on, mate.
Delighted. Thank you.
No worries. And making our first appearance in the show, a very delighted Motherwell fan, Jenna Thomson. Jenna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's a pleasure. It's going to be a busy show. Where else to start but the Saturday Old Firm derby, and it kind of promised to fulfil the promises it was meant to be. It was very entertaining, very intense, a lot of dramatic action, a lot of referee decisions that we'll no doubt get into because I'm keen to talk about them. Oran, I'll start with you. Celtic obviously won the game 3-2, 12 points clear. I think the title was done anyway before this game, and I think it was only confirmed yesterday. I don't think Celtic were at their very best. I've spoken to a few Celtic fans. I think they've agreed. I don't think it was Celtic at their sharp best, but in those big moments, just like the cup final, they come up trumps and win the game.
No, exactly. I didn't think we played too well. I think we missed Hatate, and I think Aaron Moy as well. He was. You could tell that was his first game back in a couple of weeks. I thought. We were sloppy, we were slow, but as you say, we take our chances, and it's good we've won it. Although there's a lot of speculation, obviously, about the goal Morelos scored, but no, I'm delighted we won.
I think that as well. Obviously, like as you say there, Hatate. I did think Hatate was a big miss. I thought the game completely passed Moy and O'Reilly by. I thought they were the two that probably stood out. I don't think they had a good game at all. Jack, I'll come to you, obviously, from a Rangers perspective. Rangers, there are positives to take. They scored twice. They obviously probably should have been in front with the Morelos goal as well. But it was a case of deja vu. It was just defensive lapses. Rangers were in a really good position. Davis, I don't know what he's doing for the second goal. Suter, he's a poor back pass. And it's just the familiar story I seem to talk about when I'm talking about Rangers against Celtic. Morelos and Kent, I would get rid of them. I think they're busted flushes when it comes to this type of game in particular. And I know people will say big game, Rangers have got to a Europa League final. Yeah, but they also finished 4 points behind Celtic last season. They let go of a lead. This Rangers team have had so many opportunities to beat Celtic and they just can't do it, in my opinion. I think Bale will take positives from the game. Obviously, from a tactical point of view, I thought they were better. I thought Raskin was good. Cantwell was good in stages. So I think they're positives for the future. But I think with Rangers, it was just the same old story.
Yeah, I think the difference between Rangers and Celtic, the big one is both teams do make mistakes at the back, but Celtic are clinical enough to take advantage of their mistakes. Whereas you've got Ken and Morelos, who a couple of years ago were flying, but now they're just so inconsistent with their finishing. And they don't punish teams. I don't know if you've seen the screenshot of when Kent had the ball and had the chance to give it to Tillman, but instead he just dribbles with it, and the end product is went so far downhill. And but before the weekend, I was all for keeping Kent, but I mean, he does show up every now and then. But for your main player, turning up, once every 6 or 7 weeks, is it really good enough if you're going to make him your highest paid player? I don't think it is.
You have to look at it as well. My opinion, obviously, I've spoken about Ryan Kent for a long time. I don't think he does enough in terms of big games. My dad, who I always lean to in my when I look at football, he always says how many games did Ryan Kent won for Rangers, and he's right. He's right. I've defended Kent. Tillman, I was a bit disappointed with, but I do think that was a bit of a tough afternoon for him. I still think I would pay the money for Tillman, but I just don't think that. Yesterday,
I think you can sign him and make the money back in your own 6 months, just because of the way the academy's going through it and the potential he's got. I mean, I don't think it's going to be, even if he comes for the 5 million and isn't great, I still think you make the money back if you sell him anyway. Yeah,
Jenna, obviously a busy game. There was a lot going on. I think I hate coming on here after an Old Firm game and talking about the referee. I really do, because I think it's boring, and I think obviously it takes away from the game. But there is no doubt the Morelos goal has an impact on the game. My way of looking at it is that sort of incident you see happen in every single game at least 30 times. It's just a typical two players coming together. Johnson goes down. Morelos is caught kind of in no man's land because he does outmuscle Johnson. You can't give that as a punishment to any one of those two players. It's a typical coming together. It's you either give a foul against Morelos, a penalty, or a goal. And I don't understand how you can give a foul or a penalty, because it's a coming together. There's no issue with that, in my opinion. And I'll go on about Clancy in a wee minute, but I want to get your thoughts on. I don't think the referee had a good afternoon at all, Jenna.
I don't think so either. I looked back on the clip of Morelos' goal, and I made sure I watched it more than once before I came on this and came prepared for it, because I knew this one would be controversial. But my understanding of it, looking at the clips, was that Morelos, he had his hand, looked as though it was on Johnston's back. Now, you could argue, or maybe if this was his back, like that part of my hand's the back, maybe he's went like that and springboarded off, that's why he's felt. You could argue that all day long. However, the way I looked at it and saw the clip was, the hand was there, Morelos moved away first, and then he went down. I think it's just he's maybe expecting Morelos to be a little bit heavier handed than he was, and he's went down with anticipation, but I still think the goal should have stood.
I think it's that thing as well. When Oran, I don't know about what you think of this as well. There was 5 yellow cards that Kevin Clancy dished out in the first half. I only think Cantwell's is a definite yellow card. I think, again, I've got a friend who knows nothing about Rangers or Celtic. He's very much, he stays in England. He always asks me for an Old Firm game. He's follows our horse racing channel. He says, what's the bet in the Old Firm? And when I knew it was Kevin Clancy was the referee, I said bookings, because Kevin Clancy will just bring cards out willy-nilly. He booked 5 players. I don't understand why he's so desperate to make bookings, but I'm not just having a dig at Kevin Clancy. I don't think he's a good referee. I think he's too happy to bring cards out. He should, if VAR's there, and we've went on about VAR so much that I'm becoming sick of talking about it and listening to it. If VAR's there, and there's clearly some sort of contact from Nick Walsh, he wants him to go and have a look at that. Why is he not going to have a look at it? Why is Kevin Clancy not making sure his decision's right? Because it's such a massive impact on the game, and we don't know how big an impact that decision could have. Might have had no impact, Celtic might have still won the game. But the technology's there. Go and use it. You shouldn't need a guy in your ear telling you to go and use it.
No, exactly, yeah. To be honest, I don't really know why it wasn't given, because as you said, it's just a simple coming together. You know, it's a contact sport. It happens quite. Happens. Well, I think about 10 times a game. It can happen 20 times a game. It can happen, but no. I just don't know why it wasn't given, especially with, you know, the technology you've got. I don't know why he wasn't asked to go to the monitor, because I've watched it a good 5-10 times, and I still don't know why it was not given.
Jack, looking at obviously the two sides, I think the conclusion we come to is that both sides there isn't a massive gap like there has been in the past. I think both sides have got different qualities. I think Celtic have got a top class striker who can win big games. Rangers' problems are there to see, though, and they've been there to seek for a while. Rangers need a squad rebuild. They do. Celtic have been brilliant in the past 2 years at just bringing players in that the manager knows, blending them together, sourcing good players from elsewhere, and just bringing them in that fit this system. Michael Beale has to do that in the summer because there's a long, long time where the goalkeeper positions need replaced. What do they need in the summer? What's the big priority? Because to me, I'm looking at Diogo from a Celtic perspective and going, Rangers don't have a player like that, and they haven't had a player like that for a long, long time, because I don't think Morelos is clinical enough in the final 18 yards.
It did initially look at the start of the year as if Cholak could be that guy, but I don't really feel that's going to happen. Now he's kind of went off. That's the difference though. Morelos is not going to get you 30 goals a season. He'll chip in with 12 or 15, but you've not got that, Kyogo or a Chris Boyd or a Larson, somebody that's going to get you 40 goals. Even Lee Griffiths for a spell was doing that for Celtic. You don't have a clinical guy like that. Rangers need a goalkeeper. They need somebody that can come out. I mean, that third goal, it's John Stewart's fault, but if you have a younger goalkeeper, gets out there in a flash, you don't know if he can get there. I'd like another centre back. Ben Davies, he's never looked bad, and I'm not even judging myself yesterday, but it's just, I don't have that confidence in him that I had in a Hollander or even a Balogun or, Goldstone. Centre in a midfield, I'd like a replacement for Lundstram and Kamara. I'd like to see the two of them go. And a starter in there with Jack backing up. I think the right wing's been a problem for years. I don't think we've replaced Daniel Candeias, and that's been 4 years now. If Kent's going to go, you need another left winger, and if Morelos goes, I reckon you need two strikers up there, because Roof's unreliable and Cholak's good backup against your mid-table teams, but he's not there for the European games. So you really need a full rebuild of the squad, other than maybe the fullbacks, Goldson, and then obviously Cantwell and Raskin.
Jenna, before we kind of move on, final point just in the game. We mentioned there obviously about Celtic, a Rangers rebuild. Celtic, on the other hand, they're just so dominant, so consistent. Only dropped 5 points this season. They're so, it's just been so clinical this season. They've been so convincing. How good a place are Celtic in? And obviously the league has won. There's no doubt about that. I don't see Celtic dropping 12 points when they've only dropped 5 so far. They're now only another game against Rangers, and you could be in line for a treble. What's the kind of target for Celtic this season? Is it just to keep this run going, or where else? Because they've just been so convincing and dominant so far. How do you stop that?
To be honest, I don't think there is a simple way to stop it now. Rangers have had their chances this season to try to take points off them, and as Jack was saying, they have been unable to. The difference in the squad is plain to see. Celtic are an ultra attacking team. Yeah, sometimes they may have an off day. I've had a couple of people that I know are die-hard Celtic fans say that yesterday's performance was the worst Celtic performance they've seen since Ange took over, and probably as bad as they were under Neil Lennon's most recent spell. And if they're classed as a game where they've not turned up and they're still producing a result like that against Rangers, then what would have happened if that was a fully turned on Celtic team? Could that have been 5-0? Never mind the 5-2. Could that have been 6-0? The difference is there. Celtic has made Rangers look like the rest of Scottish football, if I'm being honest, when we play them. And the likes of Motherwell or Kilmarnock or Ross County or other fellow non-old firm teams have played, it is always a game that you just put off as a write-off goal. We'll treat it, if we get something from it, fair enough. We're not expecting it. And it's almost as though that's the attitude Rangers are applying to it now. And you can't have it, not when that's your main rival, not when there's a chance that you could have potentially stopped them going on the 10-in-a-row campaign again if they get the second one, or even the trebles as well. They lost it there with the League Cup there. They've got a chance with the Scottish Cup. I hope for Rangers' sake they're able to at least fully turn up, be a strong side and put everything into the game, because if they lie down again and get beat off them, then they only have themselves to blame at this point. Michael Beale has a big job to undertake next season, because as we've discussed already, that team needs cleaned out from the inside out. Yeah,
and it's needed cleaned out for a while, and I think it's now this cup semi-final is massive for both sides. Celtic obviously going for a treble, Rangers really need to stop the treble, because I think Beale, I've seen positives in the 3 games he's played against Celtic, but it's a draw and 2 defeats. And it's not good. You need that big result. He's going to have a massive summer, but Celtic again, champions, 10 out of the last 11 leagues. Brilliant from Celtic. Let's move into the other big story of the weekend, obviously from Tynecastle, Hearts 0, St Mirren 2. Big win for St Mirren that we'll get into in a wee second. But Jack, I was surprised it came tonight. I didn't think this was coming. Hearts have parted company with Robbie Neilson, and I think it's definitely a sign of half the Hearts crowd like Robbie Neilson, like just can I accept the fact that it's not going to be great football, but they get results. But when the results don't come, then things change, and we've seen that, because I'm surprised Hearts have made this decision, but I can't say that I don't think it was deserving.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's something. Is it 5 games without a win? I mean, Hearts should be comfortably the 3rd team in Scotland. I mean, they had European group stage football, which gives them more money than any other team, other out with Rangers or Celtic, are going to get. They should be comfortable, and they shouldn't. I'm not saying they should be near Rangers, but there should be a gap. I think that squad on paper, Snodgrass, Ginnelly, I think is a good player. Boys like that, and the recent results not been great, and obviously they look as if I think Aberdeen have overtaken them now.
Yeah,
and Hearts should have had that thrown up. They looked in a position a few months ago where they looked as if they were going to pull away, but the last few weeks it's just not been good enough. And if the results aren't good enough and the football already isn't good, nobody's going to be happy, because it's not a good mix. I mean, if you're playing good football and you're not getting the results, I mean, the fans might have patience, but if the football's already quite turgid and then you don't get the results, nobody's going to put up with it.
Couldn't agree more. Jenna, Hearts, obviously Robbie Neilson. Again, it doesn't seem like he's ever been 100% loved by the Hearts supporters, but you do see some defenders. I just think it's a difficult one, and it's all about who comes in next. And they need to obviously get back into 3rd place, because they should never be out of 3rd place. They were so far out of sight, everyone. A bad run just shows you, when a bad run happens and somebody else puts in a good run, it shows you how quick the league can change. But not a good time for Hearts at the moment, and obviously a new manager needs to come in and just steady the ship and get them into Europe, because St Mirren are on their tails as well.
Absolutely. I had faith in Neilson. I thought they would have at least gave him till the end of the season to see if they did end up qualifying for Europe or not, and making a decision based on that. But when I was looking at Hearts' next couple of games, as well as whoever takes over in the meantime, their second game in charge will be in Edinburgh. Was that the second game in charge or the first game in charge? I'll need to double check that.
They're away to Hibs on Saturday.
There, it's there. So in the next week, they're preparing for one of their biggest games of the season against their main rivals. It's a lot to ask for any interim manager that takes over, because they're going to have to try rejuvenate that squad as well, because they'll be feeling defeated after 5 defeats in a row. I mean, I noticed this after the last one. The defeat that Hibs suffered to Hearts set them on a good path, minus the past couple of losses to Old Firm and then to Dundee United there. They were actually doing quite well. So it just goes to show how quickly things can change in the span of a couple of weeks. And with St Mirren as well, I'm pretty sure this is their best, if not one of their best top flight seasons ever in their full club history. And if they make it to Europe, again, I'll need to double check this if I'm wrong. I apologise to any St Mirren fans end up watching this. But I'm pretty sure they've never played in Europe before either. So this is their first full season in charge.
I don't think
Stephen
so,
Robinson.
I actually looked this up earlier. I think it's been something like, it was 1980, 81, I think the last time they played in Europe. Because actually, I seen this St Mirren fan talking about it earlier. So it's like out with most of their lifetimes.
He's going to be, Stephen Robinson takes St Mirren into Europe, he's going to be in a good list though, because I think I would imagine the last manager to take St Mirren to Europe would be Alex Ferguson. So it's a good list, it's a good roll call for him to be in. But Oran St Mirren, it's a massive season so far, and obviously they're only 3 points off 3rd now. It's one thing to obviously clinch top 6, but it's another thing to try and get into 3rd place. But the thing that gets me with St Mirren is obviously they've been really good at home, but they can go away and win as well. It's not just a case of it that home's a fortress. They can go and get results like this. They've been able to do it this season.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, at home they've bet Celtic they've drew against Rangers, and then away as well they put up quite a good fight against Celtic. I mean, even the Scottish Cup game, I know it was 4-1 or 5-1. I can't quite remember, but they still attacked, and that's a lot of people don't. A lot of teams, they sit in, try waste time, but that's not what St Mirren do. So fair play to them. They've had really good signings with Ayunga, Bacchus as well. So yeah, no, fair play to them. And I'm sure, I think Stephen Robinson, he'll be in the list for some teams, maybe even Hearts. They might even be interested for Stephen Robinson.
They certainly will. Jenna, let's get into the Motherwell game on Saturday. Big result, a 3-0 home victory over Livingston. Again, just this brilliant recovery from Motherwell so far, because there was a time where I thought Motherwell were in deep trouble, and just this run that Kettlewell's took them on. Van Veen's just been a terrific kind of player in the past few weeks. The boy Johnson, I think, looks a real talent. And it just shows you just Motherwell, they've got their act together. And now I think top six might just be 2 out of reach, but it's been some recovery.
Oh, absolutely. I was trying to do the maths yesterday at half-time, trying to see what it would take for us to actually be able to cinch top six, because we absolutely chanced the luck and we got it through technicalities and other results going in our favour last year. So I was trying to look to see, ideally, what would have to happen for us to get top six. And it's something like if St Johnstone lose, and if Livingston lose their next 2, and if we somehow, again, some miracle of God, somehow take points off of Celtic and beat Dundee United, there is the chance we can move up into 6th place. And then obviously after that, you could potentially end up qualifying for Europe, depending on who finishes 5th. I don't think it's likely, however, I'm absolutely convinced it's going to happen regardless. The blind faith. But I'm laughing saying this though, but if you have told me, I'd be saying this and actually thinking there is a chance, might be like 1 in a million, but there's still a chance there, and it could feasibly happen. See, if you told me that back in December, I would have laughed in your face, if I'm being honest.
So what's been the difference? Because when Kettlewell was obviously come in on an interim basis because he was at the club, and he did steady the ship, and they got some good victories. But you've got the likes of Van Veen, obviously. I think the one thing I've always thought with Van Veen is he's a terrific kind of striker at holding the ball up. But maybe when it comes to getting up, like maybe a 20-goal a season striker, I don't think he's been that. But he's taken a lot on himself this season. And there's a lot of young talent coming through at Motherwell as well. When Motherwell have got experience of this in the past, what's been the change in the past couple of months? Because there has been one.
Oh yeah, the change has been, it's been quite a lot of subtle things as well. You might not realise if you are someone who only watches Motherwell kind of passively. And one of those main things is Kettlewell's changed the complete way that we play football. He changes formations. If something's not working, he changes it there and then. There's none of this, we'll wait until the last 10, 20 minutes, then make a substitution. One of the players, I think it was Mandron, yesterday, he wasn't at his best in the first half. So straight away at half-time, right, son, you're off. Can't remember who you put on in his place, fair enough. But he brought someone on, and sure enough, it made the difference. We were pressing that full game. No disrespect to Livingston, but you could tell Livingston just weren't in it. They were completely had the wind taken out of their sails. Because we didn't go 3-0 up in the first half now, fair enough, I think most teams would feel pretty much guaranteed, well, that's the game over now, we'll just see what happens in the next half. But it was as though they were scared to try as well. I mean, I've been joking about Callum Butcher slaughtering lions in his free time in preparation for that game on Saturday, but he has been a massive improvement now. I don't know if that was Kettlewell's direction or Stephen Hamill's signing Butcher, but the difference he's made in our defence is amazing. One thing I always said about Motherwell before Hamill was released of his duties was that we could still score. That was the most infuriating thing. We were still able to score. Hence why Van Veen's now sitting about 20 or 22 goals now. Is that we were capable of scoring. We just couldn't defend to save ourselves. Yeah. That was what was shooting ourselves in the foot. Whereas now, we're absolutely dominating every field, and it's so refreshing to actually feel a bit of hope and a bit of belief about the squad again, because it's something that we haven't had since about October, November last year. Kettlewell, the only disappointing thing with Kettlewell is he doesn't seem to like to play with wingers a lot. And because quite a lot of the young guys that we have signed aren't getting a game, likes of like Stuart McKinstry, great player for us. He was one of the few standouts during Hamill's reign. He can't get in the squad now. Ross Tierney, he's struggling to get a game. Now, fair enough, this might be just because I'm biased because I think he's one of the best players that we had for a long time. But the likes of Bevis Mugabe, Stephen O'Donnell, Ricky Lamy, they can't even get in the squad now because of the new signings that have came in are freezing them out. And I want them to make appearances for us, don't get me wrong. But I can't justify it because the quality we're getting now, again, don't know for definite if it was Hamill or Kettlewell's direction because at the time they signed, it was just as hands were changing over. It has been outstanding. It's like watching a completely different team. Like, see, if I didn't know better, I would have thought that he's went out and bought every single member of that team in the space of the 2 weeks that he's had before the transfer window finished. It is like night and day, and it is beautiful to see.
Brilliant. It's obviously been a really good couple of months so far for Motherwell. Let's move into Aberdeen. Oran, third now in the table. 5 straight wins. Duke with a double and a 2-0 home win over Kilmarnock. Again, just similar to Motherwell, a wee change in management just can make a big difference. And Barry Robson's doing himself no harm if he wants this job on a full-time basis. And getting third place from watching them against Darvel, where I thought Aberdeen are closer to getting relegated than finishing third. It shows you the recovery there as well.
Oh no, exactly. They've been absolutely fantastic since Robson's came in. You know, Majewski. Yeah, sorry. He's a great player. Duke's a great player too. And yeah, since he's been appointed, they've been playing really good football, and to the point that they're gonna probably finish third because I don't see Hearts finishing third now, especially with the form they're on. But yeah, they're like a total different football team, similar to Motherwell. And yeah, fair play to Robson. I think he's going to get the job now, to be honest. I think he's probably the most favourite candidate to get the job with the style of football he plays. He's been dominating games. I saw the game yesterday in Kilmarnock. They didn't really have a look in. And again, fair play to Barry Robson for that.
Absolutely, yeah. Kilmarnock, obviously, a difficult weekend for them with the two below them winning, but Ross County, obviously a team in the ascendancy as well, a 2-0 away victory over St Johnstone and the first away win since November. And in a weekend where Ross County were doing hoping maybe Kilmarnock would have maybe not won, I think it's a pretty good weekend for Malcolm Mackay's side, Jack.
Yeah, Ross County, they're quite up and down. Some games I've seen them. Don't get me wrong, I've not seen a lot of Ross County this year, but some you put on sports scene. Some games they look as if this looks like they're about to finally get out of trouble, and then other weeks they just go right back into it. I mean, Malcolm Mackay is a good manager. I mean, he's at Ross County due to the issues obviously he had previously. I'm sure Aberdeen knows about, but he's a guy who should be at a higher level than that. But because of the issues he's had in the past, he's working at Ross County, and I think that'll probably be the difference in actually keeping them in the league, having a guy like that, as well as they do have a little bit of money compared to some of the other teams around them. I think that just having that good coach is going to be what probably keep them up. And don't get me wrong, Derek McInnes is a good manager, but other than that long spell at Aberdeen, he's kind of failed everywhere else when he went down to England, whereas Mackay does have a decent track record, and I think that probably will be the difference.
I mean, I think with Ross County, obviously, like we've spoke a lot about them, similar to Kilmarnock, they just struggle to score goals. But again, when you can go to St Johnstone, who are very tough to beat, especially at home, and win 2-0, it puts you in a really good position, obviously. And they would have thought probably if they'd have wanted Hibs to do them a wee favour today, but a late penalty from Jamie McGrath on the game in Sky on Sunday gave Dundee United a massive 2-1 home victory. Jenna, we'll get around the panel for this game because I thought that's a really interesting game of football. Dundee United's first win in 12 games, especially when the team above you win, it's a massive result for Dundee United.
Absolutely, been due a result for quite some time that I didn't actually expect it to come against Hibs. If I'm being honest with the form Hibs has been on recently, I did think that Hibs were going to stroll the game, so it was a pleasant surprise seeing that in live scores that Dundee United were actually able to get the win. Because I mean, looking at it as well, I've got down here as well, that they hadn't actually won a game other than that cup game against Stirling University.
Yeah.
See, when you think about how long ago that was, I think that was around about middle of January, start of January roughly. To go that long without a win and then beat a team that's on quite top form just as the split's about to happen, I don't know if it'll be enough to save them. I think they're a shoe-in for going down, and I think it's safe to say Dundee United's fate is more or less sealed. However, if they can at least get a little bit of form going before that happens, at least put a little bit of hope in the fans that everything will be okay if and when they inevitably do go down. Because Jim Goodwin does have a lot to take on next season. It's been I don't even think Goodwin's managed in the Championship. I don't think he was there.
Probably Alloa, maybe a while ago. Maybe his first job was probably the only time I can think of.
And that was a good number of years ago now. I mean, that's at least try to think how long was it?
10 years ago at least.
I say it's at least more than 8 years overall.
Yeah.
So if he's able to take on the squad, get some extra bodies through the door, both in terms of fans, keep them coming if they do go down, as well as get some extra players in, I think they'll cope quite comfortably down the Championship next year with Goodwin. However, it's all about trying to minimise the damage now so they can set up for a good season next year, regardless of if they're in with us still or down below.
Oran, I think it does make it interesting. Obviously, I do agree with Jenna that Dundee United are going down. When your own head of football is saying that he thinks you're going to go down, I think it just shows you the mentality of the club at the moment. But it does make it interesting. On the other hand, looking at Hibs, I don't think they deserve to lose that game because I thought they were playing well in stages. I thought they scored a really good goal. And they just, again, there's 4 defeats in a row. They'll be wanting to just get into the top 6 and just clinch it. And it probably would result in a good season for Hibs because I think it's been up and down. I think Johnson struggled to get his ideas together in a lot of stages. And I think both sides, I think probably Hibs more will just be wanting the split to come quickly and just try and kind of get a run of form going and focus on what's coming up.
No, exactly that. And especially when you see Livingston, they think they're only 1 point behind and they've got St Johnstone at home. And then Hibs have Hearts at home as well. So I think it's a huge blow for their top 6 hopes. I think they're now 4 points off St Mirren, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So it's a huge blow for them. The game after the Edinburgh Derby, I'm not too sure who they've got. It might be St Johnstone away.
They go away to St Johnstone, yeah. And Livingston away to Dundee United. It could be interesting. Motherwell away to Celtic, though, so it's going to be interesting to see how that top... Could be all we play for that top 6 spot.
No, absolutely. But Hibs could be looking at... I mean, you've probably got to get a result against Hearts next Saturday for any real hope for... top 5. But no, it's going to be really interesting because you've got Livingston coming up. They've got St Johnstone and Dundee United away, I think, as well. So it's going to be very interesting. And then, as you say, you've got Motherwell as well. That's coming up for chasing top 6 too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jack Stephen Fletcher as well, will probably a player who's would have quite liked the idea of haunting his old club Hibs, but I think there was a lot of Dundee United fans with their hearts in their mouth when we were off injured at half time, but to come back on and really show just how that he's getting to the end of his career, but he's still a massive asset to any team he's on.
Yeah, I mean, how much money did he go for? It was like 12 million. He was a 12 million pound player.
Yeah, right about
Sunderland at one point.
Yeah,
I mean, a guy. He's got all that Premiership experience. He's played for Marseille. I mean, the guy with that experience is what you need in a dressing room when you're in a fight. I was at Easter Road when Aberdeen lost 6-0 to Hibs with Jim Goodwin, and I was really critical of him taking the job because I thought he looked broken after that. But they got a couple of decent draws, a decent performance at Ibrox, and now they've got his first win. I don't know if they've got the quality out with Fletcher, really spread about the team to stay up, and I would not fancy them in a playoff game. But if Goodwin can keep them up, it will really rebuild his reputation because I really was critical of him taking the job because I thought he needed time off because it did not look good after that Aberdeen spell. But it's going to be tight, but I still agree with Jenna. I think Dundee United are probably the favourites to go down.
I would still say they're favourites, and it just shows you there's interesting. I think the only thing safe is who's going to win the league, because it's very, very open in our stage. You've got obviously Aberdeen, Hearts, and St Mirren going for the kind of top three. Top six is still open. There's Motherwell could still sneak in there as well. The bottom of the league is not. It's going to be an interesting end to the season, and obviously we're going to be here every week from now on and looking at that. And I think every weekend we're going to see a lot of drama. But speaking of drama, let's move into the Championship, because this is a league that nobody wants to win, because there's always seems to be a result that one of the top teams just throw it away. Let's just run through the results. Friday night, Partick Thistle 4, Queen's Park 0. Saturday, Inverness 2, Wraith 0, and then 3 draws. We'll start Hamilton 1, Cove 1, Ayr 1, Morton 1, and Arbroath 0, Dundee 0. Jenna, probably Partick Thistle's a place to start. Friday night, they scored 4 second-half goals, and again, there's one team in the ascendancy in this league, and it's looking like Partick Thistle.
Well, definitely. I didn't realise how close the actual league table was. I knew it was between Dundee, Queen's Park, and Thistle. It wasn't until I was doing research for coming on here tonight I realised I think it's only about 4 points in it overall.
Yeah.
That is neck and neck. I think at this point, in fact, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to go out, none of this I'm going to go bold. I'm going to say this will happen, right? I'm going to say Thistle to win it and Dundee go into the playoffs. I'm going to be bold. I'm making the prediction now.
I don't think anybody would say that it's. I think anybody could. I don't think I would argue with anybody in the predictions here, because there's so many. There are 4 games left, so it's going to be interesting. Dundee have that game in hand, but I would like to. Partick Thistle, I mean, Chris Doolan's done some job there since he's taken over, and I really think any of the 4 could win it, because it's still very open, and you've still got a few teams that have to play each other. Partick Thistle need to play Ayr then play Queen's Park. You've just got a lot of big games in there as well. Morton, Queen's Park. Morton, I wouldn't say they could be a sprint force. Last game of the season, though, it could come down to Queen's Park and Dundee. So it shows you they've all got each other to play. Let's look at League One, Oran. I think this could be a very pivotal weekend, because we saw a Desmond 2-2 between Falkirk and Dunfermline, and it was a classic one as well, because Dunfermline were 2 down. That could have been a big one for Falkirk, and Dunfermline got 2 goals back, and it looks like a League One in result at Falkirk Stadium, because I think Dunfermline will be good after that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's Dunfermline is just going to go up now. Falkirk, they were 2-0 up, and they've thrown away probably their best opportunity to try salvage some sort of last hope. But yeah, I do think it'll be Dunfermline who's going to win it. However, I do think it'll be Falkirk who's going to win the playoffs, because they do look like a better team from last season under John McGlynn. Much more attacking as well now. But yeah, no, I think Pars, I think they'll win it. I think Falkirk will go up in the playoffs, but then you've still got
I wouldn't sleep in Airdrie. 5 wins in a row. They're a terrific run.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think there's only 2 points between Falkirk and Airdrie even. Yeah. So as you say, Airdrie are certainly a team which perhaps they've actually went under the radar, you could maybe argue.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still very interesting as well. You've got, like, obviously Alloa sitting in 51 points in 4th place, Queen of the South and Edinburgh. They're only a few points behind them. It's going to be interesting to see how the end of the season plays out, but I do think Dunfermline are home and dry there. League 2, again, very similar story with again, Dumbarton. They just don't seem to want to win the league. To win the league, they've allowed Stirling to overtake them. Dumbarton were about 15 points clear after 8 games, and they're now 9 points behind. Shows you a big difference. But the story of the weekend, Jack, was obviously Albion Rovers 3, Elgin City 0. Albion obviously overtake Elgin on goal difference, and it resulted in Gavin Price being dismissed at Elgin. And again, I wouldn't like to be anyone in that 10th place, because I'm looking at who's potentially coming up. And on form, I would fancy any of the Highland or Lowland League team against whoever's going to finish bottom, especially Elgin, because I think they're on such a bad run.
Is it Spartans up top of the Lowland League?
Spartans are going to be in the Lowland League place, and it's between Buckie and Brecon for the Highland League place.
Yeah, and these teams are going to be on a good run of form. No, I wouldn't want to be down the bottom there. Albion Rovers are hit and miss a lot. Bonnyrigg have looked out of it at points, but they've kind of got their way back into it now. The issue with Elgin getting rid of a manager, I think, is attracting somebody to that job, because it is kind of really out the way. Yeah. So you are going to be in a limited market, and I don't know if it's the right decision. I don't know if you'd be better just to stick with Price, but obviously they might have someone lined up already to take it. But I think it is a risky move. I'd probably say Elgin. I could see them going down, but I do think they would do quite well in the Highland League if they went down. I don't think it would be like if Albion Rovers went into the Lowland League. I think they might struggle like Cow and Beef have. But if Elgin do go down, I don't think it would be the end of the world for them. I could see them coming back up. Well, at least into the playoffs, but it doesn't look good for them.
It doesn't at all. I mean, Albion obviously they dismissed Brian Reid shortly, but again, just they get a 3-0 victory. There's the results there, and again, it just shows you still going to win that league. I don't think there's any doubt about that now. But the playoffs, I think, will be very interesting. I think Elgin are in trouble. I really do. I think it's really difficult to make that run. Before we wrap up the show, I'm going to just go around the panel because it's been a very dramatic, newsworthy weekend. If I could go round, we'll start with Jenna. What was the main story of the weekend? If I could say to you, what was the one takeaway from this busy weekend, what would it be?
Do you want my honest answer or my muddle answer?
I would have thought your muddle answer would be your honest answer.
I think the main one so far has been the VAR debate and the Old Firm game. I think the decisions in that game with the referees, we touched on it a bit earlier. I think that's been the main standout one, getting the most press attention. However, the muddle answer is the fact that Van Veen is now a part of the few people at Mull have actually scored more than 20 goals in one season, and he is on track to potentially become one of our top leading goal scorers in our history. So that's a fun little fact for anyone that didn't know that about Mull.
There you go. And again, it just shows you Mull on a really good run. Oran, from the whole weekend, what would you say was your biggest takeaway?
I'll say that. In fact, no, I'll go Robbie Neilson for something different. I think, to be honest, I don't think he was going to get sacked. I thought they maybe would have stuck with him for a wee bit longer. He probably should have been sacked, but I didn't think it was going to be this quick. So it's a surprising one, and it's interesting to see who they bring in.
Absolutely, yeah. Jack, what about yourself? Biggest newsworthy headline of the weekend?
The biggest one's probably the Old Firm, but we didn't really learn anything we didn't already know. Story of the season: Celtic clinical, Rangers shoot themselves in the foot. VAR controversy, but I think the best result of the weekend is probably Crystal and the Partick Thistle. The form he's got them on, I reckon he'll go to the wire between them and Dundee now. The two of them are on the up, whereas Ayr and Queens look as if they're going to slip up. So yeah, I'd probably say that's my highlight, really, if you want to call it that, of the weekend.
Yeah, I am going to say I think it's very much the definition for me as Celtic. The difference between Celtic and Rangers is simple. Celtic have better forwards, Celtic have a better decision making, and that was the headline for me. A lot to take away, obviously. Aberdeen in third, I don't think anybody saw that coming when we were watching them get beat against Darvel, and we'll bring Darvel up. Another mention for Darvel there. Hearts, again, I think fan power just has a big impact because I think the fans had their say, and you have to give it to St Mirren for obviously a massive result. And there are potentially, they could be, Stephen Robinson could be sipping wine with Alex Ferguson because he could be the first manager since Alex Ferguson to take them into Europe. And even at the bottom, we've got big wins with Dundee United and Ross County, and it just makes this league very, very interesting. And it's been a really, really entertaining show. The last thing for me to do is thanks our guest. First of all, Jenna Thomson, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Oran Stander, thank you very much, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Cheers,
Brilliant.
Thank you.
And Jack Cranmer, thank you very much for coming on, mate.
Been great. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone who's tuned in. Please follow our social media pages for consistent Scottish football coverage. And as always, subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. Thank you very much, folks. We'll see you soon. Cheers.